they can. So, Debbie, let me come back to you then, and also to Ruth.
Yes, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Ruth O'Rafferty today, because Ruth runs the Scottish Vaccine Injured Group, and we've done interviews with Ruth before, so please go and look on the website for those. But Ruth, I just want to welcome you. That's the interview. Please go and look at it. And you've already seen the comments that Claire Craig made, and we're here to talk to Ruth about her experience. So Ruth, welcome to UK Column, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Debbie.
So, Ruth, you had a very long way to travel because you're in Scotland, and you had to go down to London for the inquiry, and you're very heavily invested in the Scottish inquiry as well. How was your experience?
Well, Debbie, as you said, we are involved in the Scottish inquiry, and we were at the preliminary hearing this Wednesday. So we had a long journey down to London to come back up to get stuck straight into the Scottish inquiry. As you imagine, it's quite a lot of work. And even to be involved in the UK inquiry has taken indescribable amounts of effort, energy, hours and hours of work with lots of stress, lots of deadlines, actually sometimes almost impossible deadlines, all so that we could let the injured's voice be heard at the inquiry. And for me, when we first started out, this was about getting help and support for the vaccine injured. But I have to say that it has expanded somewhat, because I realised that the truth wasn't going to get out any other way unless we spoke the message, because nobody was going to be represented at that UK inquiry that was going to speak the truth about the scientific facts about the risks associated with the mRNA vaccines, because that's what it's become about for me. The fact that the mRNA vaccines have been regulated, they got past the finish line through emergency regulations, and I honestly don't think they're safe. And it really concerns me, because nobody is interested in looking at this, as you've all said quite extensively.
Well, you're, of course, absolutely right, Ruth, and you have been speaking out a lot about this. And as you will have seen earlier, we introduced our audience to Hugo Keith, KC, who questioned you as well at the inquiry. And I've been watching him very carefully. And like I say, he appears to be a docile dog when he's speaking to Dame June Rain and Professor Christopher Whitty. But Baroness Hallett seems to let him off the leash and set him upon the vaccine injured. Did you find it difficult to speak with him?
It was impossible. I said we travelled 8.5 hours for a half-hour slot, because I thought it was so important that our voice be heard and that Dame Hallett got to see some vaccine injured people face to face, that we weren't just some anonymous names on a bit of paper somewhere. Do you know that he actually spent 11 minutes looking at the description of the group? When I think about all the things that were in my evidence statement, my supplementary evidence statement is 271 pages long. It's fully referenced to scientific journals, to government documents, to minutes of meetings. There's so much evidence crammed in there. And the only thing that you put up on the screen in front of me was my introductory paragraph about the group. I didn't need any help remembering what I said about the group. But when it came to asking questions, more technical questions, and by the way, these weren't the questions that I was told I would be asked, the ones that I prepared for in advance. These were different questions. When those were posed, nothing was put up on the screen in front of me to help me. And I'd said in advance that 2 years ago, I could barely hold conversations. I mean, I was really neurologically challenged. I still am, and sometimes really struggle to form sentences or to formulate answers or arguments or responses. So he knew that, or if he didn't know that, he should have known that. So I can only assume that the way I was questioned was an attempt to try and silence us. And to be honest, I'm fed up of that. Mark Zuckerman, as we all know, admitted in podcasts that he was told to remove anything related to vaccine injury. And I do feel that the UK inquiry were very gracious, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be core participants and to speak. But that was silencing, that was equally censoring, and I felt muzzled, infuriated, frustrated. I mean, I came away from there beating myself up, thinking, well, I should have said this, or I could have said that, or if I just told them, please let me speak. But when you're actually in that situation, you feel that if you speak out of turn, you could be done for contempt of court, or, they have all the power. So it wasn't pleasant at all.
No. And also, I think we must remind people that this is a stressful situation for anybody who's healthy. And not only have you had that huge journey, but as we all know, you're vaccine injured yourself, Ruth, and the stress, it's almost like he was putting you at a disadvantage. I feel your frustration because I saw it, I witnessed it for myself. And on top of that, you knew that Matt Hancock was going to be in the area because he was also giving evidence to the inquiry. And we know that he admitted at the inquiry he knew about serious adverse reactions during the clinical trials. How did that make you feel?
It's very hard to describe how it made me feel, to be honest, Debbie. I mean, physically, by the time I gave evidence, I was already very unwell. I knew I look well. I mean, I went and gave evidence with feeling like I was underwater. I had lots of inflammation going on. I was feeling sick. I had pain throughout my body. And then there's all, as you say, this emotional aspect. It brings it all home when you're actually there and you're physically at the inquiry. And to know that we're sitting in the very same seat that June Rain and Matt Hancock and Chris Whitty and all of these people would be sitting. And I knew that the following morning Matt Hancock would be giving evidence. And I can't describe how sick it makes me feel to know that they knew there were serious adverse reactions, yet they kept saying this is safe, it's effective, it's safe, it's effective. And the pressure that there was to take the vaccine, which many people bravely resisted, and they were clever enough to go and find out the information for themselves. We had no idea. We thought we were getting, I thought I was getting a rejigged flu vaccine. I was naive. I was stupid. And to know that these people duped us, he knew. And he sat on the stand and said that he'd seen the yellow card reports. The amount of yellow card reports that had been submitted must have been extensive. And he saw those. So at what point are anyone going to, when were they going to intervene? When are they going to do something about it? They don't seem to care. So no, I actually could have gone to watch Matt Hancock on Thursday morning because I was still in London, but I couldn't cope with it. I wouldn't have been able to. So we left. We went home.
I was absolutely shocked to hear your story, Ruth, really, although I could see it. And I think anybody that watches those segments will see that it appears to me anyway, as though Hugo Keith may be leading his witnesses with questions a little bit more and attacking you more, which I didn't feel was particularly empathetic of Baroness Hallett. I want to thank you so much, Ruth. I know that you are absolutely exhausted, and we will give details in the show notes of where to find you. And I know there's more to come. There's more to come on this for our audience. Ruth is not finished yet, and we're going to be bringing you more in the very near future. Ruth, thank you so much for all you do for the vaccine injured. And for now, it's back to you at the studio, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Ruth. Any comments?
No, just absolutely flabbergasted and shocked to hear that Matt Hancock is still walking around in public. That on its own, if I saw him, I would be absolutely shocked. I'd be in hiding, permanently on some island in the South Pacific if I was the former health secretary.